Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and thanks to you guys giving so much to support on the forwards tier list video. I thought, let's go ahead and do the midfielders tier list video because, you know, it's pretty interesting to go through the midfielders. I think this will probably be the most interesting of the tier list videos, I guess. So if you do enjoy this, please do smash that like. If we can get the likes to 2,000, I will drop the Defenders tier list on Tuesday. So get those likes in. We will drop that Defenders one in as soon as possible. I'll get that done over the next day. We'll do it. But there we go, guys. If you do enjoy this content as well, please do subscribe. We've got more tier lists to come. I've even thought of doing ones beyond goalkeepers as well, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, we're talking about midfielders. It's hopefully going to be a good one. I've got most of them, the biggest, the highest owned, you know, the most popular midfielders in this tier list today. Let's get on with it. Let's start placing them. Right, guys, here we go. 5 tiers. We've got S tier, FPL God. I've changed it from FPL Royalty to FPL God, just because Royalty sounds like an earned title. You know, you can come in as an FPL God, I suppose, you know, right off the bat. So, you know, if new players can go in this category, I suppose. A, great option. B, optional. You know, those players you could potentially get. C is meh. Probably the players that I'm probably not going to pick, but I can kind of understand why people would go for them. And these are just avoids. Just don't go anywhere near these players, in my opinion, anyway. So, we've got loads of players. We're going to start with the cheapest. We're going to go all the way up to the most expensive. Let's start placing some players, starting off with Andreas Pereira. And a few of you guys have actually kind of not found where Pereira is. He is, unfortunately, just listed as Andreas in the game. So just go to 4.5 million midfielders. His name is Andreas. As of recording, he's still on the Manchester United roster, but he is moving to Fulham, of course. Now, he is the best 4.5 million midfielder, in my opinion. I'm going to put him straight in at A tier. I'm just going to put him straight in there. I think if you're going to get a 4.5 million midfielder, and most of us guys are probably going to be going for maybe one 4.5 million midfielder, unless you're using a five midfielder formation. I think he is the best one to go for. He did so well at Flamengo last season, so I'm expecting big things at Fulham for him. He's going to be starting regularly. He is one of those players who has been accidentally priced too cheaply because nobody knew he would be moving to Fulham. We thought he was going to be sitting in the Man United reserves or going elsewhere. But yeah, he's a pretty good one. We won't spend too much time on the 4.5 million midfielders, though. I don't think that's a good idea. Jack Kohlbach, unfortunately, he's got to go down as, I think, an avoid. I know he's very popular. He played a lot of games last season at left back, but just because they had problems at left back, they didn't have any other players really to play at left back. So, yeah, I don't think he's actually going to start very often for Nottingham Forest this season, according to Nottingham Forest fans. It looks like the midfield positions, they're going to be upgraded anyway with transfers, so he's not going to be playing very often. Same could be said for Murphy at Newcastle. Don't think he's going to be playing very often. They are 4.5 million, you know, midfielders at the end of the day. If you're not expecting them to play any games anyway, I guess we could technically move them to a C tier meh, because if the idea is you don't want them to play, then, you know, then I guess they'll do their job and not play. But I do think if you've got 4.5 million to spend on a midfielder, just go for Andreas, because he's actually going to play. Declan Rice is going to go into the actually, we're going to go left to right. So the further they are on the left, the better they are. The further they are to the right, the worse, I guess. But we're going to put Decky Rice in a void as well. If you're going to get a 5 million midfielder, probably just go for a 4.5 million. Like, Declan Rice is going to get you typically like 2 to 3 points a game. You can get the same kind of results from it like an Andreas, but Andreas at least is going to score the occasional goal, get the occasional assist, because he did so at Flamengo in Brazil. Elanga, on the other hand, I'm going to give him a meh. I don't think he's a terrible option. I don't know how much game time he's going to get, but he's one of those players who you think could potentially emerge as a kind of under the radar pick this season if he gets regular minutes. And he was getting regular minutes at the end of last season. 5 million is actually going to be an absolute steal for him. So it really does depend on what Ten Hag is up to. Does he fancy him? Is he going to get regular game time, or is he going to be mostly a bench player or a reserve player? We don't know that yet, but I'm going to try and reserve judgment. I'm not going to say absolute must avoid. I can kind of see why people would go for him, but certainly not someone I'm willing to personally take a punt on. We've got the 5.5 million midfielders next. I think we'll put Gordon in optional. I think he's actually, you know, pretty good for 5.5. I don't think he's amazing for 5.5, but I think he's pretty good for 5.5. He's much more attacking than Jacob Ramsey, he should be playing pretty much every single game for Everton, assuming he stays at Everton. Of course, I know he's had recent links to Spurs, but if he stays at Everton, he's going to be playing every game. And he's so quick, and he's a really good player as well. You know, he's taken a lot of shots on. And I think he's only going to get better and better and better for Everton. Arguably Everton's best player last season. Maybe Richarlison will have something to say about that, but he's left anyway. So does that make Gordon Everton's best player now? If so, for 5.5 million, you can do far worse. Jacob Ramsey, I don't rate as highly as Gordon, but he is going to, again, be a fairly regular starter for Aston Villa, playing in that kind of left-sided centre mid role. He's not going to be playing as advanced as Gordon, but we know we know Ramsey is capable of getting those returns from the midfield. And finally, we've got Neto, Pedro Neto, absolute GOAT of the 5.5 million midfielders, I would say. Really, he is just such a good player. And, you know, we have not seen him play regularly for at least a year now, which is a shame. But certainly before his injuries, he was just amazing. Just so good for Wolves. Everyone was picking Neto in their FPL teams. He was scoring so many FPL points. It's been a little while since then, but I still believe he is Wolves' best attacker. Wolves have got some phenomenal fixtures at the beginning of the season. Neto is a player who I'm probably going to start Gameweek 1 with. He's one of those players who, no matter how many different drafts I make for FPL, Neto always seems to be in those drafts every single time. So I have to put him down as a great option. Is he as great as an Andreas? I mean, yeah, he's going to score more points than Andreas, probably. But, you know, for 4.5, Andreas is just the GOAT. The 4.5 GOAT is Andreas, it's got to be said. I'm going to put Bruno Guimaraes, so this is the Newcastle Bruno, in at optional. I don't think he's absolutely essential. I know he's super popular. He's actually one of the most popular midfielders in the game. But I don't actually think he is completely essential. I don't think he is, you know, a really great player to go for. He's a very good player to go for, but not a great option quite. I think you can do a little bit better for around that money. You know, I'd rather get, you know, Neto at 5.5. I'd rather get some of the other players that we're going to speak about at 6 as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, I think he's probably the second best 6 million option, but around that price point, I think I don't think he's essential. He's okay. He's probably, hopefully, going to be playing in an advanced position for Newcastle, but just as easily he could be playing as a deeper line playmaker. We are kind of yet to see that. He is kind of massively overperforming, or he's like XG, his stats basically massively overperforming last season. And, you know, for his entire time at Lyon, I think he only scored 3 goals. So, you know, is he going to be a regular goal scorer? Yes, he did manage to get a couple of goals last season for Newcastle. Is he going to be able to sustain that? I don't know. It seems a little bit unsustainable for me. Conor Gallagher, I'm going to have to put him in the avoid section whilst he's still at Chelsea. It's very difficult to put him anywhere else. Obviously, if he gets a move elsewhere, then that could very, very easily change. But if he's at Chelsea, I don't know. It's got to be an avoid. I think, you know, Chelsea kind of play with a 2-man midfielder at the moment. Even if they were to switch to a 3-man midfield, how often would Gallagher be playing enough to justify buying him in, enough to justify spending 6 million on him when he may be rotated and not be one of their primary goal scorers, primary assisters, even if he does play? So yeah, I think he's got to be an avoid. Not quite as much of an avoid as Declan Rice, who's going all the way to the right of this one. Let's put Kohlbach like here as well. Let's just rearrange these a little bit. But yeah, still a pretty big avoid for me, unfortunately. Martinelli, on the other hand, I think he's a great option for FPL. I cannot tell you right now that he's 100% nailed on, but what I can say is the second half of last season, he was Arsenal's main starting left winger. He sort of played 90% of the games starting at left wing for Arsenal, so he's very much, as things currently stand, if Arsenal aren't signing any more wingers, he still is very much a part of those Arsenal plans and a starting player, which we can't say the same about Emil Smith-Rowe, who unfortunately, second half of the season, found himself out of the team a lot. So I would go as far as to say that Smith-Rowe is actually probably an avoid as well. Maybe Smith-Rowe can break into the first team, but right now it seems like Martinelli is going to be that man at left wing, and Smith-Rowe is not going to be playing very much game time in that sense. Maybe coming off the bench, maybe playing some European games, but Martinelli is going to be the main man. Odegaard, 6.5 million. I think it's optional, but I don't think it's a particularly good option. In fact, I'm actually going to move him down to the meh category because 6.5 million, it is a little bit more than some of these other guys. You know, I think Neto, I think Martinelli, I think all of the players you see above him on this tier list, pretty much, maybe with the exception of Andreas, could potentially outscore Odegaard just because Odegaard doesn't shoot very often. He does create, he does provide a few assists. He does take the occasional shot, but he's not really the kind of guy who's going to get a lot of FPL points, really. He's going to be a second assist merchant. He's going to get the occasional assist. He'll get the very occasional goal as well, but certainly not enough to justify a 6.5 million price tag. So brilliant player, not sure he's an FPL asset. I do think James Ward-Prowse is optional, but I'm going to put him pretty high on the optional as well, because I think he is a very good FPL asset. The problem is with Ward-Prowse is people bring him in and expect returns immediately and expect instant gratification, and if they don't get that from Ward-Prowse, they remove him from their teams again. I think Ward-Prowse is the kind of FPL asset. His returns come so randomly, they just come out of nowhere because he scores pretty much free kicks. Like, that is the main source of his goals, and they come randomly. You never really know when he is going to get the opportunity to score a free kick, to be honest. So in that sense, you either hold him and just be patient with him and just wait patiently for those returns and know by the end of the season it's all going to balance itself out, or just don't go for him whatsoever. So he is an optional player for those of you who are willing to be patient with him. But if you're an impatient type of manager and you want instant gratification from your FPL assets, he is just not the player for you. Now, Sam Maximan is a little bit... Now he's listed as a midfielder. I think that is a little bit better. I'm going to put him in the optional category. I don't think he's, a must-have. He's not standing out to me as a big player to get or anything like that. But, 6.5 million, now in the midfield category, going to be starting pretty much every game for Newcastle as long as he's fit. Very good football player. Yeah, he could do okay. He could do okay. So, yeah, let's stick him there. And next up, we'll have Rashford. I'm actually going to put Rashford in the meh category. I'm going to put it in the meh. Things could change. If Ten Hag decides that Rashford is going to be a starting player every game week, or maybe that he's going to be starting striker every game week, then that actually could be pretty good. But I just don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen there. And Manchester United players are just so risky to go for right now for Game Week 1 teams. So one to keep an eye on. Maybe we move into optional. Let's just be kind and put him in optional because I can see the appeal. It's just risky. It's so risky. Rafinha, I think, we'll just put down in meh, just because 7 million for a player playing for Leeds is never really an amazing idea. If he was 6.5, I'd be more happy with him at Leeds. If he moves to like a bigger team in the Premier League, then maybe we'll consider him a little bit more. I mean, at the end of the day, Leeds almost got relegated last season. Rafinha famously avoids double-digit hauls. He can tick along with some nice returns, but I don't even know if he's going to be at the club. So I think the fact that he may not even be at Leeds come Game Week 1, I would not even be factoring him into our Game Week 1 teams yet. Like, he could leave. Like, even by the end of the transfer window. Like, the Game Week 1 deadline is before... Is it before the end of... I don't know. I can't remember when the transfer window ends these days. But, look, I don't think we should be planning for Rafinha to be at Leeds come Game Week 1. I don't think we should be planning for that fact. He's probably going to go, so let's not even think about him for now. If he stays at Leeds, maybe you can go for him, but I'm not really feeling it. All right, Bernardo Silva, pretty much low tier meh. You can go for him if you really want to, but he's going to be playing deep. There's a chance he plays at right wing now that Sterling has left, but I'm not even too confident about that. He usually plays pretty deep, and when De Bruyne is in the team, he does kind of play as a second fiddle in a way, second assist, playing a little bit deeper, may contribute with the occasional return, but certainly not regularly enough for us to consider him at 7 million, I don't think. Jack Grealish, I think, is a little bit better. I think he is kind of high tier meh, but still not super confident about him just because we don't know. There's going to be so much rotation for City, but I can imagine a world in which Grealish does begin to nail on that left. I mean, no one's nailed on at Man City, but maybe does get reasonably regular game time at left wing, and 7 million isn't the worst. At least he's going to be playing in an advanced position, unlike Bernardo, who is going to be playing pretty deep this season by the looks of things. Zaha, I think, is optional. I prefer him to some of these other guys, really. At this price point, I think he'd actually go reasonably high in optional. Not quite James Ward-Prowse level, but, Zaha, he's same price as last year. Yeah, he had his best ever FPL season last season. He had his highest goal scoring tally, and Crystal Palace are looking better and better. So he's actually, I don't really like many of the players in the 7 million price point, in the 7 million bracket, but Zaha is actually one of the few players I do like. Barnes doesn't fill me with joy. How much is he going to be playing? Probably fairly regularly, but difficult fixtures at the start of the season for Leicester. He's almost optional, but not quite. Coutinho, I'm going to put fairly low tier optional, just because I know he got some good returns last season. He did get some decent returns at certain points last season, but at other occasions, he just blanked. I think he blanked something like 10 or 11 game weeks in a row last season, and that's in the second half of the season alone, because I was only playing for Aston Villa in the second half of the season. So we've got a lot of blanks, and I think people only remember those, I think, 3 game weeks where he scored very, very highly, those 3 game weeks where he got those double-digit returns, and kind of forget the fact that he just blanked after blank after blank after blank, and it became one of the most frustrating FPL assets to own. So, yeah, it's usually very quiet in FPL terms for Coutinho, but occasionally you do get a bit of magic. So it does give him that little bit of optional status, I guess, but, you know, he's certainly no higher than that. Sancho, let's put him alongside Rashford. At least Sancho is going to be pretty much nailed on, right? We would expect. But this Manchester United team is just so scary. I would even actually going to put him down to high meh, lower, about there. If he is as good as he can be, then Sancho could be such a good FPL asset. But will he be? I don't know if he will be or not. You know, Manchester United are just such a risk, such a mystery at the moment. It's so difficult for me to kind of advocate for getting their players. So let's put him at meh and kind of focus more on the safer guys. Mason Mount I quite like. Let's put him higher optional. I don't think he's absolutely essential, but he's certainly high optional. Scored very well last season. You know, pretty nailed on for Chelsea, which is, again, difficult to say from a Chelsea perspective. Madison, don't like his price. I think he's a little bit too expensive. He's almost optional. He's almost optional for me, but not quite. Better than Harvey Barnes, even with the extra million. But I do think 8 million is just a little bit too expensive. And I do think some of the other 8 million players will outscore Madison. So almost optional, but I just think it's just slightly too expensive. Difficult fixtures for Leicester. I know Leicester don't have European competition this season, which is a good thing, I guess. But still, yeah, not quite convinced he's the one at 8 million. I wish he was still 6.5, 7 million as he has been in previous seasons, because that would move him to optional. But 8 million, there's a lot. And yeah, it's just so much money. When you look at some of the other 8 millions, you kind of see what I mean. Like Kulusevski, for example, is got to be optional, I think. I don't think he's essential or anything like that. I think he's kind of like, I don't know, around here, somewhere like that. A minor risk for game time now that Richarlison has come in, but still, Kulusevski should still be first choice on the right wing. And he did have such an amazing second half to last season. Very young still, can get better and better and better. Could be a decent option. Foden, I quite like. Yeah, let's put him like around the optional area as well. I don't think he's a great option, but he's a good option, but not great. So that's why I don't want to put him in great option. So let's put him like here. As always with Manchester City players, it's about rotation. How much game time is he actually going to play? A few people saying that maybe Foden actually moves out to the right wing this season instead of the left wing. Just, again, because Sterling is leaving. That's going to, and Jesus has obviously already left as well. That's going to be a big factor there. So maybe Foden plays at right wing, which kind of leaves us with Mahrez. Is Mahrez actually going to get as much game time as we think? A few people saying Sterling's left. Jesus is left. Mahrez is nailed on at right wing now. Guys, you don't know Pep. You don't know Pep. No one is ever safe, and Mahrez has always been preferred in those Champions League games. I do genuinely think that there are still players who can play at right wing for Man City, even with those players leaving. Foden can move there. Bernardo Silva could find himself playing some game time at right wing. We've got potentially Alvarez. Obviously, he's you know, signed obviously in January, but he's now finally being integrated into the Manchester City team after his loan back spell, I suppose. So Alvarez, he again is going to be playing as a right winger, probably primarily as a right winger, occasionally as a striker. But yeah, there are other options there. People talking about Cole Palmer, of course, playing potentially a few games as well. So yeah, Mahrez is just so risky that I don't want to recommend. He's optional. He's a player you could think about. He is very risky, though. Very risky. It's high risk, high reward with Mahrez, because when he does play, he does so well. You know, just crazy well in FPL. But he just doesn't. He gets rotated so much. We see this every season. Are we really going to say, oh, guys, it's going to be different this year. It'll be different this year. It's never different. Pep always mugs us off. He mugs us off and we take the L. Saka I quite like. Is he quite a great option? No, but he is a good option. Is he a great option? He's more nailed on than Martinelli. He's 2 million more expensive. I think I'm going to put him in great option. Low great option for Saka. He is what I would say one of the better options around his price point. I do slightly prefer him to Mount and Foden, just because he, well, first of all, he scored much better in FPL last season. He will play every single game for Arsenal. So he's super, super nailed on, which is really fills you with confidence, doesn't it? He's on penalties now as well. I think there's just lots of factors that are kind of, well, second half of last season as well was very good for Saka. You know, if he builds on that, if he keeps getting better, as he does seem to keep getting better, becomes more and more crucial to Arsenal's play on more set pieces and stuff like that, I think he could actually end up being a really good FPL option and slightly better than some of the other 8 million options. I do think that Diaz, though, he's got to take the king. He's got to take the crown of the king of the best 8 million option. Like, he has to. Like, he should start most games for Liverpool at left wing, should I say? I think he'll do really well this season. He'll have a very good season. I don't think he'll reach quite the heights of Salah, don't get me wrong, but you know that there's that potential there. We might look back at this season and say, wow, what an amazing player. Certainly the end of last season, the second half of last season, he looked brilliant, really did look brilliant. He's not quite as selfish as players like Salah and Mane, I guess, or even Jota, I guess. So maybe because he's not quite as selfish, he's not going to get quite as many returns as those guys, but he still should score really, really well in that Liverpool side who we expect to score a lot of goals. So high tier, great option, not quite an FPL god, but I do think he could earn that status at some point or another. I do think around that 8 million mark, I do also like Jarrod Bowen quite a lot. He's not super essential or anything like that, but he is like a really, really good option. Obviously, you can't have all of these 8 million midfielders. It's really difficult to pick which 8 million midfielders you're going to get. I'm going to put him around here. He did score so well last season. He was one of the highest scoring players. And I think at times at the end of last season, and I'll speak about this more in tomorrow's video, no clues as to what that video might be about, but Bowen I do really like. I may as well tell you, I'm doing another team selection video tomorrow, another draft video, and Bowen may or may not be in it, unless I change my mind between now and tomorrow, that is. But yeah, Bowen, like, I just feel like we ignored him a little bit at the end of last season, and he scored so well during that time because we ignored him because he didn't have double game weeks, and he ended up outscoring players even though he only had single game week and didn't have double game weeks, and he still was outscoring all of the double game week players. But we ignored him because he didn't have double game weeks. And I think we're at serious risk of doing the same thing again this season, at the beginning of this season, because he's 8.5 rather than 8. That puts us off. And also the fact that he plays Man City in game week 1, that puts people off. He scored against Man City last season, at the end of last season actually. So let's not forget about that. He's pretty fixture proof in many ways. Is our Jarrod Bowen, just because he likes to play on the counter a little bit. Bruno Fernandes. Don't want to put him in a void, but he's definitely very low tier meh. Again, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how Manchester United are going to be, how good they're going to be. They're a mystery, and are you going to pay 10 million for a mystery? After last season, when Bruno did not score very well at all, you know, he's been outscored by so many of these other players in the 6 million to 8 million bracket. Were all outscoring Bruno comfortably last season. So you're going to spend 10 million on a mystery? Probably not. Maybe you think he's going to have a better season this year, but 10 million is a lot. It's a lot for a risk. Sterling, yes, a little bit risky, but I actually kind of like Sterling at Chelsea. Chelsea got amazing fixtures at the start of the season. Can I put him in a great option? Probably not quite, because he is too much of a mystery. But let's put him high up in the optional. I'm going to put him high up on the optional. He's going to be playing at left wing for Chelsea. He should be scoring goals. We know he can score goals. He is a fantastic goal scorer. He's a fantastic assister as well. He did incredibly well during periods for Man City last season. He was in my FPL team for a while when no one else really had him, and he actually absolutely elevated my ranks a lot. So I really enjoyed having Sterling in my team last season. He's cheaper this year. He is playing for Chelsea, so he should be more nailed on because there's no Pep Roulette. And yeah, I think he could be an absolute star at Chelsea. As I record this video, he's just still doing his medical at the moment, but that should be completed soon. So I've just included him as a Chelsea player as things stand. Right, 3 players left, pretty big premium players. I know this video is going on for absolute ever, but there's just so many players to go for. I think there's 36 players I've gone through in this one, which is a lot, don't get me wrong. De Bruyne, yeah, he's optional. I don't know if he's a great option because, like, the problem is, and I know people will say, well, clearly De Bruyne is an FPL god, right? I don't think he'll score quite as well this season as he did last season. He is still obviously going to score very, very highly, but he's not going to score as many goals as he did last season now that Haaland is at the club, because Haaland is going to take the responsibility for goal scoring, when before De Bruyne had a big goal scoring responsibility. But he could do. He's De Bruyne. He's so good. Usually starts off the season slowly. It's just so hard to fit him in. With Haaland, Kane, Salah, Son, it's so difficult to fit him in. I mean, let's be real. He will get FPL points. I don't know where to put him. He's a great. Oh, he is a great option. He's a great FPL option, but he's difficult to fit in. So, in that sense, is he truly a great FPL option if you can't find a place for him in your FPL team? I don't think I can put him in FPL God category. Yeah, let's put him in a great option and pretty low in that tier. Just because it's so hard to get him in. It's so hard to fit him in. But maybe some of you guys have found a way of fitting in De Bruyne into your teams. I applaud you, if I'm completely honest. As long as it doesn't come at the cost of sacrificing one player in this list. Right, Son at 12 million. A little bit disappointed he has been put up in price so much. But what can you expect? He scored so highly last season. This season, is he going to score quite as highly? Not 100% sure. I think there may be occasional rotation with Richarlison. Not all the time. Son will still be very much first choice, but you may see a couple of games either coming off slightly earlier in games, being substituted off slightly earlier. Son is one of those players in the Conte system who Conte seems to be okay with substituting Son at 70, 75 minutes, and he's now got Richarlison to come off the bench as a really good finisher to the game. So I do think that Son will have his minutes reduced. I do think that he won't score quite as high as last season, despite being priced much higher than last season. So for that reason, I can't put him in the FPL God category. But again, it's very obvious to me that he is a great FPL option. It's very obvious to me that he will score FPL points, particularly in that opening game week against Southampton. I think he's going to do brilliantly. I'm going to put him here. I still think for the price, I know people are going to be screaming at me saying, how can you put Neto as a great option? How can you say Neto is better than Son? I'm not saying Neto is better than Son. I'm saying that Neto, for his price, he's under half of the price of Son. Like, he's like... Neto is, right, if you consider that you have to spend a minimum of 4.5 million on a midfielder, Neto basically costs 1 million, right? And Son costs, someone else can do the maths. But you kind of get the point. Like, Neto is infinitely cheaper than Son. So that's why, I prefer him, I'm putting him higher up on the tier list, I guess. We've got to take those prices into consideration. But we've got no one in the S tier. We've got no one in the FPL God status. Well, I mean, how can I not put Salah there? Every season... people say, right, this season I'm going to go without Salah. This season I think I could do without Salah. I don't think he's essential. And every year people are wrong. Every single year. He is an FPL god. He is FPL royalty. In FPL terms, there is nobody better. And there has been nobody better over the past 5 years. He is absolutely essential. And, people show me their drafts. People say, oh, what do you think about my FPL team? And it doesn't have Salah in. And the first thing I always say is get Salah. She should be the first player in your team sheet. He is an FPL god. He is FPL royalty. He stays in that category, and he is essential. I'd say the only midfielder who is absolutely essential is Salah. I think there is a bit of scope for a bit of creativity elsewhere. And there we go, guys. That is the tier list complete. I think that's a pretty good one. Again, guys, I'm going to post this, the web page, I guess, because I've made this myself. I'll post this web page that I've made. Well, I haven't made the web page. I've made the tier list. I'll post this tier. You get what I'm saying. I'll post the tier list on Twitter again. So keep an eye on my Twitter if you want to have a go yourself at making your own FPL midfielders tier list. I'll post that on Twitter. You can go check that out and show me your tier list or what you think. Tell me what you think about this tier list. Is there any player on this tier list you think is just in the complete wrong place? Please let me know. And I know we haven't included every midfielder in the entire game. Is there any other midfielder you think should be included in this tier list? And what tier should they be on? I want to hear from you guys what you think. Of course, if this video gets to 2,000 likes, I will release the Defenders version of this video on Tuesday. I will get on with that. But yeah, until then, check out the Forwards one if you haven't done already. And yeah, we'll just go through each of them one by one, and then maybe we'll do some more random kind of tier lists, I guess. But yeah, this has been an incredibly long video. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. Please do like, please do subscribe if you want more content. We've got my team selection, my updated draft is coming tomorrow. It is really good. I'm so happy with this current draft that I've got. but there's different strengths and weaknesses to it that I do want to discuss with you guys. So lots to talk about in my draft, but hopefully you guys can take a little bit of influence or inspiration from the draft that I'll be showing you tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, plenty more videos to come. I'm going to make sure I upload at least one video a day until Gameweek 1. How hard could it be? And yeah, I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.